Alright, hello, Darren here again from Wayne Doodle Productions. Going to talk more about how I got started in the mask collecting. And it starts way back in our community of West Springs, where our community still hosts to this day an annual haunted house. The original spook house, called the West Springs Spook House, started in a house close to the community center. It was a vacant house, and it was just some of the men in the community throwing chains around in the attic and shaking closet doors and scaring the wives. And then they said, well, you know what, why don't we just put a annual haunted house on? So it moved from this house in the community to the old canning factory. Now, the old canning factory is about 50 feet away from the community center in West Springs. It's off, kind of set in the woods, and the canning factory was built probably in the 1930s. My grandfather actually helped build the building, and it was used by the farmers to bring their crops in from the farms that they were getting ready to harvest, and they would steam them and put them in jars and cans and get ready to sell them at farmers markets or out to various grocery stores. So that's, an agricultural place. And it was neat that this building was built so close to the community center because it made sense. It was a common area. The two schools was there, the ball field was there, and so they built this cannon factory there. The gin was a little bit more down the road on the other side. To kind of see it from the spook house, where they pour some cotton seas away. That building still stands. So anyway, the community that I grew up in was phenomenal, and this spook house was always there since I can remember. And when you're a kid, you have great imagination of what's going on in this building, because mom and dad, kind of sheltered us and protected us from going in because they knew they were scared the crap out of us, and we're too young until we started going through it, and then fell in love with it. Our birthday's in October. The fair came into town in October. Halloween was in October, so my brother and I, David, just gravitated toward Halloween as being just a favorite time of the year. Plus, it's cool outside. So, the spook house, it started probably in the building it is in 1978, and it's been going there ever since. And they had masks in it that weren't found in Walmart or Kmart. Not top stone masks, but actually masks that you see in front of you from Distortions Unlimited. They had some Don Post and some Be Something Studios mask in it too, but it was the Distortions Unlimited masks with their eyes that really had an impact. Like, whoa, these masks were awesome. You just don't see these all the time, especially in the stores. And so the reason why they had the Distortions mask is that Morris Costumes in Charlotte, North Carolina is about 75 miles away. So they would go up there once a year, do a big mask purchase, and then lo and behold, you go to the spook house, you have new scares and you have new masks. And it was very profound and impactful as a kid to see these masks. You didn't know who was behind it. You just knew you had these scary, lifelike masks coming at you, growling and screaming and doing what they do best, is scaring kids and teenagers at Halloween time. So the masks I pulled from my collection are either copies of the ones that were used in the spook house or actual copy of the actual ones that I saved from the West Springs Spook House. Warlord right here, for example, is a vintage copy from the West Springs Spook House that I saved. So this one was in there with us. My brother and I, David, we started working in the spook house. And oh, by the way, we had our own haunted house in our grandfather's chicken coop about a mile away from the spook house. Nowhere near the caliber because we didn't have, the funds to have a spook house, but we had a good time. Anyway, when Dave and I started working as teenagers in the West Springs Spook House and helped volunteering, no actors were paid. It's all volunteer work. Warlord is one of those actual masks that I saved from the coffin that they had full of masks at the time. And when I first started working in the spook house, Death here, not this particular copy, but Death was the first mask that I wore in the spook house. So what you see in front of you are masks that were in there. As you know, Carnivore, I call him Wayne Doodle. The reason why this mask was called the Wayne Doodle in the spook house. And the Wayne Doodle is a folklore from back home. It's a campfire story told to scouts about a monster that lives in the woods, and you know, eats your children, eats the chickens, and just roams around terrorizing the West Springs and Mount Lebanon communities. So campfire story turned into a monster. And as I stated before, when this guy was caged, and the actor, who was Wayne Henderson, by the way, was slammed against the cage, and he had a party pooper, as we call them, that he would blow and it would roll out, and he'd roll it back in. So this thing had his tongues, and then all of a sudden this tongue's shooting another 2 feet out at you, because you were pretty much closed in the maze toward the monster, scared the living crap out of you. Then he pulled an actor back, the guide actually, who was guiding you through the spook house. And from the beginning of the spook house, there's a Pepper's Ghost Illusion quick change, so the guide would always turn into a spook, and he would jump back out wearing a mask. I want to say there was a Be Something Studios werewolf mask, or Hellhound down here is the one that they wore. It probably changed back and forth a couple times throughout the night, or a couple years that they had that trick in there, but it was fun. Additionally, Frankenstein from Don Post Studios was used. This is a resurrection version of it. I got a 1980s copies of the Karloff Frankenstein too, and that one actually, they would come down out of the ceiling on a winch, and of course he had a Jacob's ladder, so it was a very good scene. Keeper of the Crypt was in it. The Keeper of the Crypt was a rogue figure who actually had a flamethrower attached to him. It was nothing more than a little Coleman type stove, so to get a nice puff of gas and they ignite it, and poof, you get some fire effects going on. But they've discovered that fire inside of a spook house is not desired, particularly when you have to start meeting fire codes, so that kind of eliminated after a while. Other masks that they used in the spook house, you have Rod the Vampire and Death. Both of those were used mostly in the torture scenes. Diseased here was used a couple of years in the torture scenes by several different actors. Some other masks that were used, I'll pull it out. You know, you got like some Be Something Studios mask here. Lunar Links was used in it. I have 2 copies of this guy. This one's getting kind of rough, but this is one of the actual masks from the spook house too. This is a Be Something Studios evil unicorn mask. Starting to show a lot of signs of rot. I've rediscovered him in a drawer in my dad's shop after missing for 15 years, but yeah, he was in there. Other copies that I have of things, I got oh yeah, another Be Something Studios mask that was very significant to him at the time. The Shrunken Head. This guy was worn by a guy we nicknamed Kneecap for several years, either hanging from a noose from the ceiling, but about every year for 20 years this mask was used. This is a copy of the Shrunken Head. I think the Shrunken Head mask was still up there, to ask David. Don Post mask, Sinjanor. I still have that copy. He was used by my friend Eric. His dad wore it, and that was, you know, very significant. Anytime you saw eyes on a mask, that's kind of game changer. And that's one of the few masks I know from Don Post that actually had eyes. I got a copy of it. I'm looking right at it, but I'm not going to get it. Anyway, and then Letcher. Letcher was another good one. Used a lot of times paired with Frankenstein right here as the lab assistant and throwing rocks, foam rocks at the patrons coming through. But yeah, the West Springs Spook House. It got me started in mask collecting, and now it kind of stayed with me. eBay didn't help. As eBay came on in the later 1990s, picked up a mask here and there, and it's just keep picking up masks here and there until you got over 250 masks, and you're wondering what you're going to do with them besides display them. But hey, it got me to get to know Ed and Marcia, who are great, wonderful people. If you get to meet them, you'll find out. Just great Christians, great beliefs, great artists, and, you know, profound impact on pop culture in America for Halloween. Ed and Marsha had a great impact, along with Don Post and the Zagonis for Zagone Studios. Just those three companies, and then the higher end Mask of Death Studios through the 1980s and the 1990s on to today, basically defined the Halloween mask industry. And now Trick or Treat Studios is carrying on that legacy. So it's fun. So that's how I got started in mask collecting, the West Spring Spook House, and evolved into eBay. And here I am, a 42-year-old man, looking at my mask collection and excited about the continuation of the hobby. The people I've got to meet in it, like Dirk Smith, Pete Roberts, you got Rudy from the Crimson Ghost Mask Room, getting to meet him, Justin Mabry, Ed and Marsha, and all the other mask makers and all the other fellow collectors out there too. You guys have made it worthwhile. It's a great time. I love it in the groups. But hey, World Wide Web, the mask collecting community, we welcome y'all too. Anyway, have a great time collecting masks. It's a great hobby. I enjoy getting to know people in it.